Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Just got off the plane from Wirtz, Virginia. We had a great time there at their brand new church, Faith Family Church. Their new building is so cool. The crowds were so hungry. It absolutely amazes me. I know I say that every week, but just people are getting so hungry for the coming of the Lord. It's exciting to see that. We should be shouting from the housetops He's about to come. But if you're anywhere near Alabama this weekend, we'll be at Grace Family Church in Jasper, Alabama, Sunday morning, Sunday night. We'll have a great time getting into the Word there. So we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, and specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war. Because the second coming has so many signs, and it's just blatant, and the rapture doesn't have any signs. So if we can see what's going to happen just after the rapture, and that's Ezekiel 38, that's Russia and Iran and Turkey coming down on Israel. I've said it the last 3 or 4 weeks, what a major alliance they've been making together. So in our new book, End Times Made Easy, we have charts in there from Clarence Larkin, so it makes it super easy to understand how close we are to the coming of the Lord. So there's about 70 some odd signs of the second coming. So we're just privileged to watch it unfold right in front of our eyes. We'll look back at this season and go, how could we have been so blessed to be the group of people on the earth just before the King comes? So verses are coming to pass right in front of our eyes. It is wild. Paul talked about the baptism 12 times, coming of the Lord 52 times. For every one verse there is about the first coming of the Lord, 8 times more about the second coming. So it's very documented, so we'd see what it looked like. So what? We would accelerate. We're going to get into stuff. We get into stuff every week, so that it will cause us to see the finish line. And when you see the finish line, you don't have an escape theology, you have a hustle theology. So let's pick up with what's happened around Israel. Man, so much is going on. We'll try to get in as much as we can. So kind of crazy with Iran. The UN unveiled basically a new proposal for Iran for a nuclear deal. Of course, they came back with what you would call concessions or changes each time. And basically, they're the same changes that they've said for the last 5 or 6 years, knowing that they were going to get rejected. So that basically just bought them more time to make nuclear weapons. So it's funny how they say they want to negotiate, but they really don't want to negotiate. And in the same week, this last week, Iran basically traded Russia 300 combat drones. They're huge combat drones capable of carrying all kinds of missiles. They basically did an exchange with Russia. They got some Su-35 fighter planes from Russia. So you've got that deepening agreement with Iran and Russia together right now. You're seeing that with nations coming together to the point of you watch them make these alliances. Why? Because the Bible said they would come together like this. So that's what's amazing about it. We should be really freaking out because everything is unfolding exactly like the Bible said. Pretty wild. I mean, you had earthquakes this last week in several places. You had wild floods in several places. So you got nature kind of going crazy. You got tonight a massive asteroid that's coming between the moon and the earth. We don't even talk about that. When I was looking at that one today, there's like so many more coming in the next few weeks. It's like, wow, it's asteroid after asteroid after asteroid. But you've got China doing crazy stuff to the point that Singapore's prime minister said, man, China's not getting ready for a drill. They're getting ready for World War III. So you're hearing both sides from Russia, from America, and from China talking about that kind of influence as well. Then you had the Palestinians president, Mahmoud Abbas, go up and talk to Germany's foreign minister. It's interesting. He was pushing as hard as he could to get Israel to be called an apartheid state, a slavery state. It is not a slavery state. That's so insane. I like that one of the reporters asked Abbas, he said, will you ask forgiveness for killing all those Jews in the 72 massacre at Munich? And he blew him off, wouldn't say a word. He said, what we have had is worse than the Holocaust. He said, we've had 50 Holocausts. So you have a psychotic mentality. Abbas has been making the runs up into the EU to try to get groups to agree with him. The main one that said he would help him was France's President Emmanuel Macron. So you see this push to get a Palestinian state right now. It's pretty wild. There was another agreement to not annex, but kind of build on more land on the West Bank. So, man, that's going to cause all kinds of trouble. So you have little event after little event after little event happening that points to Jesus is just about to come back. I mean, it's wild. Israel found some terror tunnels digging from Gaza. They found those this last week. So the Palestinians have all these tunnels built because they want to annihilate Israel. There was a huge smuggling ring for weaponry that was coming in that got caught this last week. So Israel's doing an amazing job stopping all that. You had another verbiage come from the northern part of Israel, which would be Hamas. Hamas is in Lebanon. They decreed that it was time for them to go ahead and go to war just because the Gazans did what they did. But the Gazan rockets, all those were a test to see how accurate the Iron Dome would be for Iran to see what was going to happen. So, and then you had good old Turkey. After saying they're going to invade Syria, they did airstrikes in Syria, killed about 7 or 8 people, and injured quite a few more. So you've got a nation in Turkey going into Syria to cleanse the Kurds out, just like they said Russia was going into the Ukraine to cleanse the Ukraine. Absolutely insane. So these nations that are in the Ezekiel 38 war keep moving closer and closer and closer. Russia had a massive explosion there. It looked like someone got in from the Ukraine and set one of their ammunition plants off. So there's a lot happening that literally one little thing could lead to the shooting in of World War III. So what I'm amazed by it is behind all that, there's all these little pushes for the Temple Mount and pushes for the West Bank area. The Jordanians said this last week, they want to have a different mentality there, even to the point that you've got China's president coming to meet with Saudi Arabia to form more of an economic tie. So you got money moving, weapons moving, weaponry moving, missiles moving. Jesus is just about to come back. Wow, how exciting. So we look at all this because he loves us so much. He wants us to know all this because he wants us happy. He wants us hopeful. He wants us expectant. He wants us excited. That's why he said, when you see these things come to pass, lift up your heads. Your redemption is drawing nigh, indicating you could be downtrodden when the Bible is unfolding right in front of your eyes. He doesn't want you downtrodden. He wants you happy. So let's always go back to the Word. What's the Word say? Number 1, Israel made a nation. Number 2, Jerusalem won back. After that, you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You have men will be lovers of themselves. We have selfie sticks. Then after that, you get into so many things. You had foxes show up on the Temple Mount. I've had people lately ask me, what's the deal with the foxes? It just means that the land is desolate. The Temple Mount used to be so holy and the presence of God was so strong there that animals couldn't come near it. And now it's so desolate that foxes are walking on the grounds. That's Lamentations 5:18. Then you have the ritual baths around the Temple Mount fill up with water. Fish showing up in the Dead Sea. Never has that happened. That was prophesied 2,700 years ago. And then you had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah was a few months ago. And it happened exactly on the Day of Atonement. That's absolutely wild. So you have all these things. You had Rabbi Ixachaduri prophesying about Israel being ruled by 2 Benjamins. That happened last year. You had Bishop Malachi showing the popes that would be on the earth all the way up to the coming of the Lord. The History Channel said statistically impossible. It got it 114 out of 114. So you have all of these signs, 172 different species of predatory birds started showing up on the land. I mean, you've got the cleanup crew there for the Ezekiel 38 war. And 7 years later, God calls on the fowl of the air to clean the land up again. So how blessed to watch sign after sign after sign. Signs aren't there to scare us. Signs are there to show us that we're headed toward an eventual end. And that end is Jesus is coming back. So he put all those signs there so we'd have a heads up. We could tell, okay, we're getting close. But you have sign after sign after sign after sign. Then all of a sudden you go to signals. You had blood red moons 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles. That's amazing. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? That NASA calls that a tetrad. Well, the last time was 1967 when Jerusalem was won back, 1948 when Israel was made a nation, 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So major things happening with Israel and the heavens declaring at the exact same time. Wow, that's a big deal. Well, then after that, you had the Bethlehem star. When Jesus was born, you had Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together. Jupiter, a king planet. Regulus, regal, king planet. Venus, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. The constellation was Virgo. This last year, you had NBC Nightly News talk about a celestial event, Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus. That always gets England all excited. But you know what? I like that Regulus, it didn't go backwards. It did retrograde motion, formed a crown over Jupiter. Absolutely amazing. Bethlehem star, first time in 2,000 years. You have many more things. If you got into the stuff that happened in 2017, the eclipse started in a town called Salem on the west coast, finished on a town called Salem on the east coast, Jerusalem. I mean, the heavens are doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, the Lord's going out of his way so that if we're remotely even paying attention, we'd see Jesus is just about to come. So what do? Help our local church, help our local pastor. We're all engaged. It's all hands on deck. This is it. Like a football game, when the 2-minute warning sounds, you hustle. The quarterback's looking at the play clock because he has to make changes and things are more crucial. So this is it. This is our time to get more people saved and run as fast as we can. And we don't fit church into our life. It is our life. Wow, He loves you. He wants to bless you. He wants to strengthen you. He wants to encourage you. He's not mad at you. So many people are condemned all the time. The devil doesn't even condemn them. They condemn themselves. No, the Lord is not, He's not mad at you. He wants to bless you. You're His kids. So how cool to be so soon to see the King. Wow, soon and very soon we're going to see the King. Many more things keep happening around Israel with Iran. We'll watch this next week and see how Iran does with the EU, see if they've made some concessions to maybe have a nuclear agreement. So we'll get to see Jesus so soon. Have a blessed, wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.